Hello, beloveds. Here I am again. I made a video just now and took it down because it was so ADD, and I'm trying to talk about ADD. I am either introducing a new channel or a new playlist, as it were, on my channel entitled Metaphysical ADD because I want to talk about the spiritual tools, such as meditation, that will help ADD people um, not just manage who they are, but really bring forward the soul intention, the spirit intention. Why did I incarnate as ADD? And I did notice that there are a lot of videos out there talking about star seeds and light workers and what's the point of ADD and da da da. I've just begun to think about that, but I think my unique contribution is I'm going to have a guided meditation at the end of this. And this video is all about, and here's the second outline, is to help you develop the observer. So the observer of your experience creates distance and differentiation between your essential self, the part of you that's driving the bus, and the bus, which is the vehicle, which is crazy sometimes. So when we get in the observer stance, as Deepak Chopra says, it's like we're halfway there. When you begin to observe your experience, and this is for everyone, because then you get to step back and choose, and you also get to have compassion. So those are the two outcomes. You get to have compassion on yourself and your experience. And for those with ADD, that's a whole world of hurt. And you get to strategize, engage your will, and say, where am I going? And this comes down to every group, and consider yourself a group, has two functions: group maintenance and group task. So what did the group come together to accomplish? Maybe they're going to go out and feed the homeless, but they need to do group maintenance and say, let's have a staff meeting and talk about how we're all doing and our levels of efficiency, and do we need to hire or fire, or, that's maintenance. So, okay, I'm going to talk about the essential or the eternal self. And this is a concept I've really been, what's the word? Fleshing out. The essential self is your eternal spirit that decided to come here. And in its other incarnations, okay, my belief systems are just going to come through, so I'm not going to apologize for them. When you chose to incarnate, you chose a brain that has ADD. It's a lifelong handicap, but it's also a gateway to genius. And your essential self chose that because it would open doors or force you to grow in order to step through those doors. You would have to adapt to a culture that wasn't friendly to you. Those of us in my generation, it wasn't recognized when we were children. They didn't know how to look for it. We were just naughty or inattentive or didn't care enough or lazy. And there weren't strategies. And so we've got a whole, and then there are kids that it's being addressed, and, what meta issues do they have now being labeled with it? And I don't know. But anyway, so there's a lot of growth, and we develop soul strength, resolve, and humility. Anybody with a handicap is like, okay, are you going to, or if you're someone against whom the society is prejudice, like, not just racism, but like being a psychic. Yeah, there's a huge stigma around that. But, so humility. We also have a mission on the planet. Your soul decided to come here because it was going to contribute to whatever the evolution of Earth is right now. And there's also a genius contribution that you have to make. So those are all the domain of your essential self. That's just what I'll call it. And then there's the human experience, the body, mind, personality, the ADD, the typology, that stuff that I just love, that I really get into. And I think it's because I create distance. Once you can kind of label something, you do create distance and separation. And that can be toxic, but it can also be really helpful to say, okay, this is what we're dealing with. Now we can separate ourselves from it and observe it and come to understand it a little bit better, which applies to just about anything. It's like you can't figure out why this dog keeps running into things and what's the problem and what's going on. And well, he's blind. Okay, now we know what we're dealing with. Okay, I have to be careful of not getting in the weeds here. Okay, so we have the will, the part of us that chooses, and we have the brain type, which is the how. We have the driver of the vehicle, and we have the vehicle. And how much do ADD people, and this may apply to everyone, how much does your vehicle determine where you go and what happens instead of you? So here's a grocery store example. Grocery stores are carnivals for the ADD person because not only is it fun and stimulating, a dopamine rush, we're dopamine deficient, so we're always trying to get the next dopamine hit. So like shopping, shiny objects, the new, the novel, the interesting, it's all about what we want. Those are all ADD things. But also what you're shopping for and what you're acquiring will give you ADD hits, like, food and chocolate and eggs and cheese. And I've really been researching this lately. Turns out I've got a really good diet for an ADD person. Really, if you don't know about what's good for you and what can help your brain to create dopamine, I heartily recommend that you do a research on like DHA, tyrosine, all these, neurotransmitters. There is some control that we have. See, get me getting lost in the weeds. So I'm wandering through the grocery store and I end up at the freezer case where I almost never buy anything from this particular section. And I found myself just kind of stopping and gazing down at a bunch of products. And I kind of went blank. It's like my machine just went dun, 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 and I was just sort of stuck there. And this voice said, keep moving. Who is that voice? We're going to talk about that. Keep moving. And I observed that my brain was looking for something to fixate on. And I was like, oh, that's what's happening. There's actually nothing here. There's no function being served. This is just the machine kind of glitching. And just getting that observer distance is kind of what sparked this whole idea for this video. It just kind of began developing. And I'm like, oh, I am able to observe because I really worked on that with meditation. So I'm going to lead a guided meditation partway through this. Oh, this is good. I'm not quite so ADD here doing this. Okay. So spaciousness, creating the observer, gives us the spaciousness that allows for a whole bunch of things. Now that we have some space and we hone the skill of being the observer of our experience, which is neutral. Okay, the observer, what does an observer do? Think about a elementary school classroom, and say you're a college student working on becoming a teacher, and they assign you an observer, assignment. What do? You sit in the back of the classroom and you don't interact with anyone. You watch, you listen, you observe. You may have some judgment going on. There may be some criticism in your mind. You might feel some compassion for some people, but those are kind of the fruits of observing. But the act of observing is just like being a video camera that's just recording information. And the more we can begin to weed out our tendency, even observe our tendency to judge, to fix, to evaluate, to draw conclusions, to draw meaning, to feel a certain way about something. And we just hone it down to just observing. And that's what my meditations are intended to do, is to help you become a more and more neutral observer so that your essential self, because that state of dying and going, having a near death experience, leaving your body, machinery, the driver leaves, and guess what everyone says over there? They don't have feelings about all the troubles. They go, somehow everything was just okay. And it's not only neutral, but it's celebratory. It's filled with joy and love and like, wow, there was because we see the purpose of it all and it all makes sense. The good, the bad, the ugly, the painful, all of it. And there's just like this wow, this capacity to be truly the observer. So this is also strengthening the muscle of listening to your eternal self, your spirit, that part of you that decided to come here, strengthening that channel. We are horizontal, body, personality, chemistry, particulars. We get over identified with this. We're also this. I come from eternity and I have an intention here. And I remember being one with God. When you over identify with one or the other, there's a huge loss. And that's a whole other series that I'm working on with my manifestation class. But nonetheless, bringing this into the context of ADD is incredibly powerful. You are not the sum total of your brain chemicals. Okay, so creating this spaciousness allows us to do the task and the maintenance, the work of task and maintenance. Maintenance is included in maintaining this vessel and attending to this experience is compassion. What does this feel like? There is a video channel. I don't know how to do links, but just look this up. If you have ADD and you want some massive resources, I love this gal. She's human, she's funny, she's light, she's totally ADD, and it's called How to ADHD. And I'm not the hyperactive, so I really prefer ADD, but it seems like that's what you find out there these days is ADHD, whether you feel you're hyperactive or not. So she has a video called The Wall of Awful. Maybe that's not what it's called, but if you type in how to ADHD wall of awful, and she and this other ADD expert talk about how there's this wall that we have built up between us and the thing that we're trying to get to. And, of course, it's all just it's brain chemistry that keeps us from getting there. But the wall of awful gets made of like shame and guilt and sadness, frustration, despair, anger, all of just that bad, toxic internal stuff. And feeling the pain of that is really essential to healing it. And that is what I have attempted to do. We all have strategies, those of us with ADD, with this wall. And my meditation background and finding compassion has allowed me to melt the wall of awful with love, with compassion, not even knowing I was ADD, but getting into a place of like, wow, let me feel all that hurt that I've tucked away in all those places. So processing, releasing the grief. I went to an EMDR session just a few days ago because a bunch of this grief and sadness about being ADD really came to the surface. And so I went in, had this session, cried and cried and cried and cried. And then through that night, and when I woke up, I noticed that my sense of myself was not like a naughty child or a bad child. It's like this kind of all pervasive, I'm this, and it was lifted away. And I was like, I just felt more neutral towards myself and my experience. I was just a neutral adult after the releasing all that pain. Okay, so yeah, how much of that sense of self and self-definition due to all those locked up emotions cause us to operate in the world? And I wanted to throw in this little bit here. Dumbledore says to Harry, we are not, we're not, I don't know, what came before, what makes us who we are is our choices. Here's the glitch with people for ADD. We have intentions and we do make choices, but they don't result in actions very often. And so there's this tendency to judge our own integrity by the lack of action. And we need to back up and see our intention and then have compassion for that wall that gets between us and carrying out the action, especially long term things that require long term consistency, big goals, career, much, things like that. Okay, so there's the whole compassion, and then there's volition. So we have maintenance, talking to all the people in there, talking to all the voices inside of us, having, staff meetings and staff therapy sessions and spa day. And then the volition. What is this here for? What am I here to accomplish? So getting a distance helps us to ask the question, what do I want and what do I need? Where am I going? What do I want to accomplish? I have this beside my bed for a reason. Fortune cookie. I got this just around, I don't know, sometime at the end of last year. Find a peaceful place where you can make plans for the future. Find a peaceful place, externally and internally, make the choice, strategize, take the action, set it up where you can make plans for the future. That's what this video series and guided meditations are all about, is creating that peaceful place. In meditation, it's proven that it reduces cortisol levels. Talk about frustration and stress. It reduces cortisol levels so that that essential voice can come through and say, where are we going? What are we going to do here? And let's just get rid of all the shame and the bad feelings so that we can actually really take pleasure in this experience, not only of being human, but of having an ADD brain and being ensouled on the earth at this time of tremendous transition. Wow. So let's clear the field so we can enjoy our time and get to work. So the guided meditation. This is going to help you create and understand that there are two distinct aspects, at least for this purposes of this meditation, and to develop a relationship between those two, but more essentially, the space in between these two parts. So, okay, take a deep breath, settle in. The 4-7-8 breathing exercise, we'll work ourselves up to that. Breathing into a count of 4, hold for 4, release to a count of whatever. You'll find it's longer than 4. Now breathing into 4, hold for 7, release to 8. Enjoy the pause between. Feel that stillness. Again, inhale to the count of 4. Hold for about 7. Release to the count of 8. Now listen to the room. Listen to the subtle sounds. Become aware of how the air feels, maybe even the air pressure. Become aware of the surface that you're sitting or lying on. Become aware of your body. and feel where the energy is in your body. Let's track that energy and observe it for a few moments. Where does your attention go? Maybe your head, your throat, your heart, your belly. Stay with observing that energy. What does it feel like? Use descriptive words. This is where your mind can help your experience. What does it feel like? What does it look like? Does it have a color, a texture, a motion, a shape, a size, a feeling? Is it changing? Observe how it may change or may not change. Are there attending thoughts and feelings or memories that come up? Is there an image? Does this aspect of you have something to say? Hold this aspect of yourself with compassion and curiosity. Now I want you to ask the question, who is it that is observing? What aspect of me is doing this observing? For the moment, let's just call that our essential self. And now I want you to picture your essential self, your will, your eternal spirit, sitting on a cushion facing another aspect of yourself on a cushion, which is your body, mind, brain chemistry, personality, this temporary vessel of experience. You can switch between the two, but for now, be in the eternal essential self, looking at your human experience. Maybe ask that other self, what is it like to be you? What's it like in there? Pause the video if this is going somewhere for you. But for now, let's begin to close this by embracing. Have those two selves embrace, where there is wisdom, compassion, guiding intention, experience that we are just simply subject to, all of it, the yin and the yang of the human self. And in that embrace, bring that embrace into your chest right now, where you are sitting or lying. Breathe that into yourself, this integrated self, and begin to feel your fingers, your body. Breathe a little more deeply, coming into full awareness, eyes open. So, blessings And I will make another video if I figure out how to create a new channel. And then I'll send you there to subscribe. Peace.